I never thought I would find myself starting over at 50 years old. When the divorce papers came in the mail, I held the envelope in my hands for nearly an hour before opening it. The paper felt heavier than it should have, as though it carried not just legal terms and signatures, but the weight of every memory I had built with Michael over the last 22 years. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Far from it. But I never thought it would end like this, quietly, with the sound of a pen scratching across paper instead of the slamming of doors or raised voices. Just silence. That silence followed me home and filled every corner of the house. The first few weeks afterward were unbearable. I'd walk into the kitchen and expect to see Michael pouring his coffee, reading the paper with his glasses sliding down his nose. I'd reach for 2 plates before I remembered I only needed 1. Even the dog, Daisy, padded around the house as if she was searching for him, her ears perking up whenever a car pulled into the driveway. Nights were the worst. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of the old floorboards, and the emptiness that pressed in from all sides. My friends told me I should look at the divorce as a new beginning, a chance to rediscover myself. They meant well, but their words felt hollow. At 50, the idea of a new beginning felt like a cruel joke. New beginnings were for 20-somethings fresh out of college, not women with crow's feet around their eyes and a body that carried the marks of motherhood and years of stress. I wasn't naive enough to think I could just start over. As far as I was concerned, life as I knew it was over. That belief might have swallowed me whole if not for my neighbor's son. The Greens lived next door for as long as I could remember. Susan Green and I exchanged pleasantries from time to time, borrowing cups of sugar or chatting about the weather while pulling weeds in the garden, but we were never particularly close. Her son, Daniel, I had watched grow up over the years. He was the kind of boy who was always polite, always smiling, and always running around with a soccer ball under his arm. The first time I saw him after the divorce, I barely recognized him. He wasn't a boy anymore. He had grown taller, broader in the shoulders, his once messy hair now kept in a neat cut. He must have been around 20 by then, home from college for the summer. Susan and Daniel showed up at my door one Saturday morning carrying a tray of blueberry muffins. "Mom made too many," Daniel said, his grin easy, his voice warm. "We thought you might like some." I almost turned them away. I wasn't in the mood for company, least of all from my cheerful neighbor and her bright-eyed son. But Susan's kindness was genuine, and Daniel's smile carried none of the awkward pity I'd grown used to from others. So I invited them in, and we sat at the kitchen table. For the first time in weeks, I had people sitting across from me, voices filling the room instead of silence. After that, Daniel made a habit of waving when he saw me outside. Sometimes he'd wander over, asking about my roses or offering to carry in the groceries when my arms were full. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just neighborly politeness, but deep down I knew it was more than that. He was keeping me tethered to the world outside my grief. One evening, I found him sitting on his porch steps with a guitar in his lap. The soft notes drifted across the lawn, and I couldn't help but stop to listen. He looked up and waved me over. "Do you play?" he asked as I sat down beside him. I laughed. "Not unless you count plinking out Christmas carols on the piano years ago." He smiled and started playing again, his fingers moving effortlessly across the strings. The music was simple but beautiful, carrying a kind of raw honesty that tugged at something inside me. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd heard live music, or felt the joy of simply sitting and listening. That night, I laughed for the first time in months. Not the polite, forced laugh I gave when friends tried to cheer me up, but a real laugh that shook loose something in my chest. From then on, Daniel became a quiet but steady presence in my life. He'd drop by with stories from school, ask me to taste test his attempts at cooking, or show me new songs he'd been working on. He didn't treat me like a broken woman or a tragic figure. He treated me like a person. It wasn't romance, not in the way people might expect when they hear a story like this. Daniel was far too young, and I wasn't searching for love anyway. But he gave me something I didn't know I needed: hope. Hope that life wasn't over, that there were still new experiences to be had, laughter to be shared, and reasons to get up in the morning. Slowly, I began to change. I dusted off the old box of paints that had been sitting in the basement for years and started painting again. I joined a book club at the library. I even learned how to cook meals for myself instead of falling back on frozen dinners. But more than anything, I learned how to sit with myself in the quiet without feeling suffocated by it. Daniel didn't know it, but his presence reminded me that life was still worth living. He carried with him the energy of someone standing at the edge of his future, unafraid of what lay ahead. And being near that energy, being reminded of it, made me believe that maybe I wasn't as finished as I thought. My marriage had ended, yes, but my life hadn't. And it took the kindness of a neighbor's son to remind me that it was never too late to begin again. Please like and subscribe my channel for more romantic videos.